This presentation is part of my larger research on the evolution of Romanian women's identity discourse by analyzing their fashion possibilities, choices, and ideas. I aim to offer new insights about women's fashion through comparative, interdisciplinary, and multi-perspective approaches as original contributions to the emerging field of Romanian fashion study and a framework for future research. The presentation is part of my fashion and gender subgroup within the Romanian funded project, which we're all the members here at this conference, the Ethos of Dialogue and Education, Romanian-American Cultural Negotiations. This paper follows the cultural negotiations between Romanian women perceived as Parisienne and their representatives in American Vogue in terms of their activities, identities, and the magazine's biases. While similar subjects on the connection between fashion magazines and foreign style icons have gained interest in recent years, Romania's representation, especially through fashion and in the United States, remains largely unexplored. Based in New York, Vogue was founded in 1892 by Baldwin Turner as a weekly elite gossip newspaper. In 1909, the magazine was purchased by Condé Nast, beginning its evolution to the fashion magazine we know today. The editor-in-chief throughout the Interwar era, which we're interested here, was Edna Woolman Chase, who put the first fashion show in 1914, right during the war, and continued to maintain control over the American and the growing number of foreign editions, starting with British Vogue in 1916 and Vogue Paris in 1920, which in 2021 became Vogue France, with a total philosophical change from Paris as a symbol of culture and style to France as simply as a national magazine. In this sense, I'm using La Parisienne as a symbol. She's not necessarily resident in Paris, but she most often is, but she's not necessarily French either. As with the beginning, the Vogue readership has been American elite, especially New York financial social elite, and it was heavily edited. Because of that, the Romanian they saw was ideal and far away. In this way, my presentation connects in some capacity with all the previous presentations during this conference. Because I have the idea of the press, Romania's representation in the Americas, in the United States, and so on, and war, some connections, mostly indirect, but with war as well, World War II, especially. Throughout the interwar era, Romania was most visible in the 1920s, considering fashion, and slowly faded away to references here and there. I would say from En Vogue to En Fog, getting murkier and murkier by the year. I focus on three characters here for this presentation. Each of them is a symbol of royalty. We treat modern royalty with Queen Marie, Romania, older royalty with Margrit Besco, and burlesque royalty with Alice Cocea, also connected to the Balkan drama and the whole popularity of affairs like Carol Ardona and Lupiasca. With today, the most common way of representing fashions and world elites is through events, especially with weddings, like you can see here. In May 1907, already, Vogue declared Princess Maria of Romania, who would become Queen Marie, as the most beautiful of all the princesses of Europe, coupled with that rare quality charm. She, um, her crowning feature, the article concluded, was still as a mother, and as a mother of her children, as a mother of her country, making this English princess transplanted into this far off Balkan, wanted to be revered by her proud and fortunate subjects. Vogue continued such foreign affairs, in brackets, reports, even in announcing its winter fashions number. As the advertisement detailed, the issue would offer a comprehensive winter wardrobe for the debutante, including an article by Walter Littlefield titled Princesses of Europe, included Princess Elizabeth of Romania, who would later become Queen of Greece. And as you can see on the left, the illustration, it's from September 1922, the wedding between Princess Maria of Romania, King Alexander of Yugoslavia, described as an event of worldwide interest. And I also have the making of Greater Romania from another perspective here, as you can see on the lower left. In the summer of 1919, fashion journalist Jean-Ramon Fernandez reported for the American magazine about Queen Marie's visit to Paris as days brilliantly filled with everything in honor of the Romanian queen, offered fresh assurances of peace in tandem with the return of the frock coat. Fernandez asserted that Queen Marie dominated the Parisian elite circles for a whole week. Besides visiting her friends in the Parisian high society, the Paris Press Syndicate organized a matinee at the opera. However, there was no mention about her diplomatic efforts to convince politicians of Romania's interests. Queen Marie's fame as a fashion icon and beauty icon, a promotion tool, as you can see here. She's everywhere in all sorts of cosmetic ads, and usually she's the first, if not the European royal, to be promoted as an example for the product's efficacy. And the bonds, bonds, no, the Ubigam perfume, of course, sorry, published several years. In several years, it published the same ad, even though it changed the orders and some of the queens and empresses in the list. But the interesting was that Queen Marie was always the first. In 1928, the included an article about Queen Marie's favorite Romanian spots. However, authored by Viola M. Jones, not the Queen herself. But when Vogue published an article about Romania the Colorful, as you can see in the middle, it featured an image of Marie in stylized folk costumes as the Romanian, as also seen with the Red Cross magazines. Like in other earlier occasions, Queen Marie was also a literal fashion icon. As you can see here in Batu, and there were also several articles with other designers with richly illustrated outfits designed only for her. And oh, sorry. And usually when you had her portrait, her full-page portrait, it was followed by an article. For example, one of her portraits was followed by the same Rosanna Montalembes as a visiting French woman describing the fashionable Italian elite on the backs of Rome's antique legacy. And by September 1938, and almost 2 months after Queen Marie's passing, Vogue published an article written by Grand Duchess Marie Pavlovna. You can see the title here. That explained that it was already in the works and when by a melancholy of coincidence, the news broke. Being among as the article explained, Maria Pavlovna was among the few Americans who knew the late queen more intimately or had a more sympathetic understanding. She was already aware of her friend's precarious physical and emotional state during her last visit at the Grand Castle, the article's focus. Pavlovna dedicated a whole paragraph to the Queen's preference for tea gowns. And she noted that the Queen designed her tea gowns herself. While tea gowns do not necessarily classify as fashion items, this can provide subtle clues about Queen Marie's personal preferences, which can rarely be visible in her public functions as a British and Romanian royal family member. And as I showed this, alongside regular references to the Romanian royals, especially Queen Marie, school was also frequently mentioned in fashion or cultural contexts. In September 1925, Vogue illustrated essay written by Mark Bibescu, My Romania, focusing on two of her favorite Romanian spots, Mogoșoaia on the plains and Posada on the hills. In another mention of Princess Bibescu came in February 1928. In this instance, referring to her full name, with full-page photograph followed an article written by the princess. The article question was titled "The Lure of the Other Woman's Gown" and centered around a certain Odette, one of those odd women, Odette, who always wanted just the someone else has. Bibescu recounted a certain visit she paid one time when a remarkable black mousseline dinner dress. Immediately asked the princess if she could copy her dress. Imagine her audacity. But the thesis, this essay had only been published by Vogue in Paris in French as part of a monthly series published by Vogue Paris, monthly throughout 1927. The 12 articles plus some unpublished essays were collected in a volume in 1928, also by Condense. Neither the image caption nor the English translation published in the American edition mention the French series or the book, despite an intrinsic connection to Vogue's very essence. That the book goes in America as well. Says again in late 1934 as an example of culture, style, and pedigree in Vogue's Vogue Eyes view of the mode, showing her as a natural beauty compared to on the lower right the horrible idea that some Japanese had, according to the articles, Japanese women had, that they wanted to have Western eyes. The article concluded that the princess would visit New York, particularly, sometime in the future, and they were looking forward to her reaction. Her reaction came in January the next year, where Bibescu, now described as a well-known European lady of letters and author of Catherine Paris, recounted her her impressions during her 2-day visit to New York. From her first sentence, Bibescu clarified that the article was to be understood from a woman's perspective, as she declared that New York's lashes women, forcing them to look upwards at the tall buildings in a city that emanates pride. She then narrowed the focus even more, stating that she referred to the women on the streets because those encountered in drawings are as common as the women you meet everywhere. I mean, like everybody knows, Cannes in January, Paris in May, London in June, Paris in September. Look at the women walking on New York streets, Bibescu marveled at their freedom as she observed gender segregation between town and downtown New York. She explained that women down as flaneurs walking the streets freely and victoriously. She compared women's lives and their women's life in the uptown as akin to war. In her view, were bellicose, connecting to Grant's presentation also. From head to foot, triumphant, torso held high, conquering eye, gaining Bibesco's admiration as they strode magnificently up to the portals of the victory that counts, if you believe the moralists, victory over self. Bibesco contrasted European women's education, emphasizing self-doubt, with the apparent American self-assertiveness. As she explained, for European women, beauty was directly proportional with the need to apologize, highlighting their melancholy, their contrition, their heartbroken air, as opposed to the proud and unapologetic relationship to beauty in America. She believed the reason was youth, as New York's women, enchanting and heroic in character, are driven by the fact that they were younger this year than they were the year before, as she says. Process curtailed only by this. Contrary to expectations, remarkable their Americans displayed was their distinction, not vulgarity. She also applauded New York's elegance and sense of familiarity, architectural grandeur, by the environment and sympathetic hotel and service staff. In the end, she stated that while American women brought hats, perfumes, and dresses across the ocean, she would return to Europe with visions instead of stockings as the other European women. In February the same year, Vogue included a whole page illustrated spread of gowns which the Parisienne is wearing now. And this Parisienne can be either Bibesco or, as you can see here, Alice Cocha. As the bolded subtitle explained, a discerning eye may catch hints of those which will be worn in the coming spring. Among illustrious examples or unnamed couture designs, actresses of Romanian heritage, Alice Cocha, was put in the color gown, as you can see on the right. Presentation is, however, to be the oriental, in brackets, overall impression, as it is closer to a Chanel little black dress than a Poiret exotica extravaganza. It was also featured 2 weeks later in an illustrated spread on predictions for coming fashions, as seen in the latest French theater plays. Because, as the article explains, an important part in the creation of modes is conceded to the Paris stage. Coach is drawn in the middle by a thin line from other illustrations in another calot gown. Furthermore, it is then safe to infer that in the context of interwar Vogue, that France was interchangeable with Paris, which is no longer applicable today, at least in terms of fashion, entertainment, and culture. In the early 1930s, Kocha, in her blonde evening satin at the Gymnase, was a staple of Parisian life. Part of its unchanging events and characters is reported in January 1932 by Solange Diane, Vogue fashion editor and the wife of Jean-Maurice Paul Jules, Duke of Ayen. Okay. There is, you can see some other examples of a diplomat's wife ads, and especially an ad. You can also see the picture with a model where they use the Romanian, in brackets, embroidery. American Vogue did not expect its source of interesting elegance and fashion to be cut off as the 1940s began with World War II, becoming more and more a reality. Just a month before the Nazi army occupied Paris, Paris was in the 1940s. With a celebrated comedy actress of Romanian heritage, as I said before, Alice Kocha, having returned from the United States, where she she's some say she failed Hollywood career. She returned to Europe, particularly to the Parisian stage. As the subtitle explained, Paris laughed at her playing a zany, and her importance for French theater was solidified by the writer claiming that it becomes important again as she is back. With her the My Wife in Armand Salacruz's popular play Histoire de Rire. And akin to her public image in the interwar era, which was heavily promoted and talked about in all the other everywhere else in the American press, especially with her marriage with Count de la Rochefoucauld and her lovers, and there was also suicide and a lot more juicy details. So her image as a heartbreaker vamp, Kocha's role and performance function, according to the article, as a proof that behind each marriage there are a mistress and a lover. In the last months of World War II, while Vogue Paris was still temporarily suspended, published 2 illustrations, also connected to Brâncuș, of the little black dress, which they termed as the uncluttered black dress. As a product of uncluttered modernity, the black dress was described as being the look's most dramatic settings. In one case, putting the look in most dramatic settings, either a bold juxtaposition with an advanced locomotive model, or a serenely dimensional placement next to the sculptured fish by Constantin Brâncuș. And as I said, an indirect connection to Romania and Roxana's previous presentation. After World War II, Vogue mentioned Romania outside of fashion, beauty, or women, and cultural interests on commercial, touristic, or political grounds. In 1947, 6 months after launching Dior's new look, this advertising section included a note about the cooperative for American remittances care, as you can see on the right. The announcement was placed next to 2 fashion advertisements and a gourmet article about hot foods. The juxtaposition is striking in its social and material contrast between the situation and needs in Europe and the well-to-do lifestyle of the American elite. just as Dior's new look was beginning to solidify its prevalent style. Despite the social and political upheavals in the years following World War II, the Bibisco name was uttered in textual, visual, or marketing context. For instance, in September 1947, upon full-page advertisement, no longer mentioned queens and empresses. Instead, you can see there on the lower right, there is a Princess Petra Bibesco's daughter. In February 1949, the magazine published an opinion piece by Jean Cocteau on Deneuve, 14 years after her passing. In his view, Noai was endowed with the royal politeness of ear and the genius for talking. And as the caption points out, he was no stranger to talking either. So there was some sort of proximity of two people who led to be listened. American Vogue readers have been following the life and legacy of Anna de Noailles since as early as her marriage in 1897 with San Mathieu de Noailles. So the reports come full circle from the second slide. The Romanian family remained a popular subject on Vogue even after King Michael had officially abdicated and left what would eventually become the Socialist Republic of Romania. In March 1955 issue, with Queen Marie's youngest daughter, Miss Ciliana, and her home in Newton, Massachusetts, living as your typical American woman. In the same month, but 40 years later, the review of Nicola's biography of Queen Marie, the last romantic, a biography of Queen Marie of Romania, authored by Susan Hart. In December 2003, American Vogue presented a list of the simplest best books. It included a recently published album to French photographer Jacques-Henri Lartigue, accompanied by an illustration of Romanian French model René Père in the 1930s. The book reawakened the interest in Lartigue and particularly his pictures of René Père, which inspired a collection by Carolina Herrera in spring 2004, the next spring by John Galliano. The collection's earlier presentation in Vogue Runaway credited the light-soaked Riviera photos taken by Latin at the turn of the last century, but not Pearl herself this time. Describing the general feeling of the ready-to-wear collection presentation filled with blue skies and lavender-scented Mediterranean breezes. Often, Romanian was a Parisienne, and this time she wasn't even mentioned. Pearl was pictured again in 2000. A letter from the editor, authored by Anna Winter herself, as one of the possible inspirations for the June summer look. In conclusion, Romania, as seen in Vogue, was but one facet of the true Romania, no less real than the lived and remembered experience inside its borders and outside. Vogue's essence presented a highly cosmotized image of the world, which included Romania. The Romanians presented in the interwar era and in the subsequent recalls were because they were Romanian. They were fashion icons. They were fashion icons by virtue of their family, social, or professional status. With the three symbolic characters chosen, the modern royalty, Queen Marie, the older royalty, Mar Bibescu, and the burlesque royalty, despite growing upheavals, managed to become a constant presence in a mass consumed by America and New York's social and economic elites. As their images slowly faded from en vogue to en vogue, Even the glimmer of recognition of modernity and international impact, the true culture of fashion of women coming from a faraway magical land somewhere in Europe, dimmed down gradually in tandem with the old world. While Vogue does not shy away from mentioning Romania as an origin point and beloved homeland for those three symbolic characters, they have been included more within the larger group of European royals, nobility, and elite, Alice Scotia's case, specifically Parisian entertainment. The success of Romanian representations in magazines like Vogue run concomitantly with history, and each aspect and publication deserves attention, as demonstrated by the symbolic trio chosen for this presentation. Thank you very much. How do I stop share?